The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment.
Minnesota fraud crackdown continues. The lawmaker is expected to testify as the White House aggressively investigates widespread fraud allegedly perpetrated in part by the Somali community in the state. Then,
we are going to see kids on these apps less, and we are going to see them more engaged with their academics, with their friends.
A new year means new laws, from SNAP to social media to minimum wage. The change is going into effect tomorrow. And all eyes are on the economy as we ring in the new year, where the stock market and home prices stand after a rocky 2025. Live from the nation's capital, this is the National News Desk, America's News Now. Good evening and thank you for joining us on your New Year's Eve. It is now 2026 in a handful of African and European countries. The clock just struck midnight in places like Germany, France, and Italy. Here's a look at Bahrain, where people rang in the new year within the last couple of hours. Look at those fireworks, just gorgeous colors. And in less than 6 hours, that will happen here. President Donald Trump is set to attend a New Year's Eve party in Palm Beach in a little over an hour from now. All across the country, really, law enforcement officials are preparing for celebrations with extra security. No specific credible threats have been reported, but the FBI and Department of Homeland Security say lone actors and small groups with ideological motives present the most significant threat. That is according to a new federal report obtained by CNN, stating that the threat matrix remains high, citing the deadly vehicle ramming attack in New Orleans last year. Officials are concerned about potential copycat attacks. And tonight, the Trump administration is surging resources into the state of Minnesota, going after what top officials say is widespread fraud perpetrated in large part by the Somali community. Funding has also been paused for all child care services in the state. The governor saying it's all part of President Trump's strategy to cut services to those in need. Here's the National News Desk, Christine Frizzell.
The Trump administration ending 2025 in a similar way to how it started the year, making major cuts to funding, at least temporarily, across the state of Minnesota. As investigations into rampant fraud are carried out, a top official with the Department of Health and Human Services announced all child care payments to the state would be frozen. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz slamming the move, accusing President Trump of politicizing the issue to defund programs that help Minnesotans. HHS, though, taking it even further, announcing new rules for the entire country.
Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment.
The Justice Department executing search warrants and subpoenas. The Department of Labor investigating the unemployment insurance program. The U.S. Department of Agriculture continuing its pursuit of names and addresses of those who receive SNAP benefits. And the Department of Homeland Security now has hundreds of agents on the ground conducting door-to-door investigations.
One thing now the Homeland Security investigation special agents are looking into is just that you said, that money trail of where this money is going to foreign aid. Obviously looking at any type of links to any criminal activity, obviously terrorism activity.
The Department of Treasury announced 4 weeks ago it was investigating whether any of the money received had been sent to the Somali terror group Al-Shabaab. As questions mount over taxpayer-funded businesses, including daycare centers, accused in this viral video of receiving millions, but not actually operating.
All right, we've arrived to ABC Learning Center.
One of the daycare centers featured says kids were inside the day Nick Shirley came, but he was not allowed in because he was in a large group of people in masks, sharing this surveillance video with local affiliate WCCO.
According to the timestamps in the videos, this woman takes a young child into the center at around 9 a.m. that day. About 3 hours before Shirley arrives,
Republican House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has just announced his committee will be holding 2 hearings to investigate claims of fraud in Minnesota. One next week with Minnesota state representatives, and one in February where Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison have been called to testify. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
And as investigators now explore possible daycare fraud schemes nationwide, a growing number of officials are calling for extra scrutiny in their own states like Utah and Washington. The National News Desk, Michelle Esteban reports.
So we need to investigate this. We need to see exactly what's happening with the taxpayer dollars that are being funneled through the state government to these daycare centers. and make sure that they're being spent on daycare, on childcare, on kids.
The head of the FBI now expanding the investigation that uncovered fraud in Minnesota to other states. It's not a stretch to think Washington could be included, considering it has one of the larger Somali populations. Jim Walsh, chair of the Washington State Republican Party, welcomes the federal accountability and the regulatory scrutiny.
Do we know where this money's going and that it is being spent appropriately?
We don't know that with certainty. And we do need to be careful. It may be that some or a lot of this money is being spent properly.
But Walsh says anecdotally.
But the emerging evidence is that a number of these child care centers look like they're empty, and they've been empty for a while.
President Trump says he's ending the deployment of the National Guard in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland. Trump making that announcement on Truth Social, adding, quote, "We will come back, perhaps in a much different and stronger form when crime begins to soar again, only a question of time." Troops already left L.A. after they were sent there earlier this year to help manage crime and immigration. They were sent to Chicago and Portland, but were not on the streets due to legal challenges. And the Bexar County, Texas Medical Examiner's Office confirming today that a body found yesterday is that of 19-year-old Camila Olmos. Investigators say search crews discovered the body in an area of tall grass a few hundred yards from Olmos's home with a firearm nearby. The ME determining the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head and ruled it a suicide. Olmos went missing on Christmas Eve, prompting a large-scale search by local, state, and federal officials. Meantime, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office is still searching for 17-year-old Angelique Johnson, last seen on the northwest side of San Antonio. Angelique is believed to still have her cell phone, but deputies have not been able to find her. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. Looking ahead, New York City will be under new leadership in just a few hours. 34-year-old Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani will be sworn in tomorrow on the first day of 2026. Mamdani's team is planning two ceremonies. The first will be small and private at an old subway station around midnight. The second will include a large block party later in the day outside City Hall. Mamdani is New York City's first Muslim and first self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist mayor.
WEB.
New laws across the country will take effect January 1st, from food assistance to social media and gambling. The National News Desk Atra El-Nashar reports on the statutes taking effect in 2026.
New year, new laws. Much of the legislation passed in 2025 kicks in Thursday. Stricter work requirements for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, coming from President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. More able-bodied adults without dependents will have to work or volunteer a minimum of 80 hours per month. Starting January 1st, instead of aging out of this federal requirement at 55, recipients will have to work until they're 65. And recipients with children over the age of 14 will no longer be exempt. In 5 states, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, Utah, and West Virginia, SNAP dollars can no longer be spent on soda, candy, and other items the state considers junk food.
If you want to buy a sugary soda, you ought to be able to do that. The U.S. taxpayer should not pay for it.
And for gamblers, good news and bad news. Some will keep more of their winnings. The taxable threshold for slot machines is rising from $1,200 to $2,000. But gambling losses will hit harder in the 2026 tax year. Instead of being able to deduct 100% of losses on taxes, only 90% can be claimed. So if someone wins $10,000 and loses $10,000, they'll have to pay taxes on $1,000 they don't have. In 19 states, the new year ushers in a boost in the minimum wage. Washington state is the highest at $17.13 an hour. A crackdown on social media usage for kids in Virginia. Platforms must get parental consent before users under 16 can be on their platform for more than 1 hour per day.
We are going to see kids on these apps less, and we are going to see them more engaged with their academics, with their friends.
The new year also means more expensive health care for more than 20 million Americans. Enhanced tax credits under the Affordable Care Act expire after December 31st, and Congress hasn't acted in time to prevent costs from skyrocketing. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
The White House started the year with a record-breaking number of executive orders. Coming up, we'll break down some of President Trump's moves that have tested the lengths of presidential power. Then the snowfall record that was just broken in New York as tens of millions of people remain under alerts for severe weather. And later, the new state law going into effect that targets drivers convicted of DUIs, cutting them off from buying alcohol altogether. We'll be right back. The White House started the year with a record-breaking number of executive orders in President Trump's first 100 days and didn't slow down throughout 2025. As the National News Desk, Matt Gelka explained, some of his orders have tested the lengths of presidential power.
Heading into December, the president had signed more than 200 executive orders. He's issued more than Joe Biden did in all of his 4 years, and he's far outpaced his own first 4 years in the White House, where he signed 220 over the course of his entire term. The current number has been achieved in less than a year in office for his second term. The executive orders have covered things like banning DEI policies, TikTok deadlines, and election-strengthening measures. They've also covered Trump's #1 economic issue, tariffs, and he used EOs to enforce different tariff rates on countries around the world.
The executive's power is to enforce or execute the laws, but the president can't make laws. Only Congress can make laws. That's legislation.
Allison LaCroix is a University of Chicago law professor and legal historian. She says it's important to remember what kind of constitutional power executive orders actually have. They're not new laws. Instead, they're typically enforcements of existing laws or enforcement of powers granted to the president through Article 2 of the Constitution.
The power of the purse, the spending power, that's Congress's power. The war-making power, Congress's power. So you can say, I'm the president, I'm issuing an executive order on these topics, but if you don't have the power to run the tool, then the tool does not work.
Executive orders can be rescinded or they can be hit with legal challenges. And so far, President Trump has seen hundreds of actions wind up in court, including executive orders. Things like deploying the National Guard in cities, firings of federal employees, and the tariff policy itself have all been contested. The president has ripped the challenges, with courts being one of the only checks on executive power.
When the executive order comes with it an assertion that nobody can question or examine the executive order, that is fundamentally incorrect in terms of the Constitution of the United States.
Franklin Roosevelt has the executive order record with more than 3,700 signed. He was also in office for 12 years. If Trump keeps up his current pace, he'd be the 5th president to total more than 1,000 executive orders while in office. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
And on this New Year's Eve, many Americans are still bracing and dealing with severe weather. Right now, over 20 million people, they are under flood alerts in a region still recovering from damage from flooding just last week. Take a look at the map behind me here. Coastal Southern California could get heavy rain early tomorrow with possible flash flooding there. The rain is expected to wind down later in the day. But on the other side of the country, as we zoom in here, over 25 million Americans are under severe winter weather weather-related alerts. Bitterly cold. An Alberta clipper is sending snow to the upper Midwest and Northeast tonight. We've been tracking it all week long. And the system is also strengthening lake effect snow downwind of the Great Lakes. Areas downwind of the lakes, Surrey and Ontario, could get another 1 to 3 feet of snow in the next couple of days. Syracuse, New York, America's snow capital, living up to its title, just broke a snowfall record. 24.2 inches of snow were recorded at Hancock International Airport yesterday, the most ever recorded for December 30th. You can see right here what it looked like in a nearby suburb. Yesterday was also Syracuse's second snowiest day. The snowiest day was February 15th, 1946, with 34 inches total. Turning to the economy, U.S. stocks are on track to see a third straight year of double-digit gains. The S&P 500 is set to rise 17% this year. That's after rising 23% in 2024 and 24% back in 2023. 3 straight years of double-digit gains. It's relatively rare, only happening 5 times since the 40s. The average rate on a U.S. 30-year fixed-rate mortgage fell to its lowest level of the year, dipping to 6.15% this week. Freddie Mac is calling this an encouraging sign for those potential home buyers heading into the new year after the year began with the rate close to 7%. And by the way, U.S. home price growth kept a sluggish pace in October. As we take a look here, the Case-Shiller National Index showed that prices were up 1.4% from a year earlier. Now, Chicago is now leading major cities with the strongest annual price increase, with a 5.8% gain, followed by New York and Cleveland. The Trump administration is planning an aggressive hiring campaign to recruit more ICE agents. The Washington Post reports ICE plans to spend $100 million over 1 year to attract like-minded Americans in a so-called wartime recruitment strategy. The Post reports that effort will target gun rights supporters, military enthusiasts, people who have attended UFC fights or listened to patriotic podcasts. This New Year's Eve, the Washington Monument will light up to usher in the beginning of a momentous year for our nation. This is what it looks like right now. 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and it's all part of President Trump's Freedom 250 initiative. The National News Desk Taylor Murray spoke with the CEO of Freedom 250 about tonight's event.
This is only the second time in history that the Washington Monument has been illuminated. So can you share more about that and what we can see, that we can expect, rather, to see projected onto the monument?
That's exactly right. You know, tonight we're marking a once-in-a-generation moment of our country, and the Washington Monument is going to be lit up as the world's tallest birthday candle. And President Trump pledged that America's 250th birthday would be a celebration worthy of our history, our values, and our future. So, you know, Freedom 250 was created to help deliver on that promise, and tonight kicks that off. And it's really about bringing Americans together to celebrate the triumph of the American spirit.
That's what it's all about. So walk us through the night. When can we expect to see that display begin? And are there any other events or displays happening at the National Mall tonight?
Well, so the event begins at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And what you'll see is a projection on the Washington Monument. It starts at the top of the hour. It goes in multiple segments. It lasts about 20 minutes. And as you mentioned, this is only the second time in the history of the Washington Monument that it's been lit up like this. So it's going to be exciting. And it's actually going to be going on for the next 5 days. And it'll culminate then on January 5th.
Coming up, strong winds tear through a historic church, leaving questions about what comes next for the sacred landmark that has stood for generations. We'll be right back in 90 seconds. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From a historic church in Ohio hit with serious wind damage to a restaurant owner in Wisconsin resigning after allegedly burning an employee's Charlie Kirk sweatshirt, we are taking the pulse of America. And we start with a new law going into effect on New Year's Day in Utah that will restrict people convicted of extreme DUI offenses from buying alcohol.
Pain and grief cannot be spoken.
Matthew Affleck was just 4 months old when he was killed in a DUI crash in 1999.
They were going home from a play, my family, and somebody was in a bar. They served him 21 drinks over a couple of hours. He left there and hit my family.
That grief led his grandfather, Art Brown, to join MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
This law is important because if that person had been refused alcohol as a multiple drunk driver, I may not be in this chair today.
Brown is talking about a new law that aims to prevent drunk driving.
What problem did you see that convinced you that this law was necessary?
Well, basically, it's just the multiple offenses we have on DUIs.
Starting January 1st, people who are convicted of an extreme DUI case will be restricted from buying alcohol.
We've been trying to solve it the same way for a long while. It has not worked.
Says lawmaker Jerry Stevenson, who co-sponsored the law. The law gives a judge the discretion to place someone in the interdictive category, which means a person's driver's license will be marked with no alcohol sales.
Who will this law apply to?
It'll identify the people who are going before a judge multiple times.
Vicious high winds striking St. John the Baptist Church in Maria Stein. The Marian Catholic community posting on social media that the west wall of the church collapsed. Now all that damage is compromising the integrity to the rest of the building.
I think there are quite a few people in the community who thought perhaps the structure was salvageable prior to this, and I'm sure it's really a blow to them to see the building further maimed.
A massive fire back in May left significant damage through the building. Smoke could be seen for miles, and the aftermath was devastating. Community members I spoke with say this is a small community, and nearly everyone is of the Roman Catholic faith, so they attended masses or weddings here at this church. That makes all of this tough to bear.
I think that hurts people a lot. It really cuts to the bone.
My family, like so many here, have roots that run deep. I mean, really deep. My great-great-grandfather helped build this church. He was on the building committee. And many other families are the same way. Parents, grandparents, baptized here, buried here. So, yeah, it's just and it was such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
On December 12th, Husby's Food and Spirits employee Robert Meredith says he left his Charlie Kirk sweatshirt on a hook at work.
I honestly forgot about it, and then somebody had told me, like, hey, where's your hoodie at? And I was like, I don't know, probably at my house. Like, he said, no, it's probably not.
Meredith says he wasn't provided many details, but was told Husby's co-owner Chad Kadenko burned his Kirk sweatshirt.
It was talking politics in a bar, and it led to that, which is never good.
Meredith says politics isn't a normal topic at Husby's. According to Paul Kwiatkowski, word of the incident spread quickly in Door County.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that was assassinated 16 weeks ago, and his shirt with, that is symbolic of him being burned. Not to mention, it also had an American flag on it. That's going to touch a lot of nerves, I think, in any community.
Kwiatkowski wrote a letter to the Sister Bay Village Board, making sure it was aware of what happened, as Kadenko was a trustee. On Monday, the village announced Kadenko had resigned. Over the weekend, Kadenko apologized on Husby's Facebook page for what he called inappropriate behavior and all the damage it has caused employees, the community, Husby's patrons, and his business partners.
Coming up next here on the National News Desk, a preview of tonight's Times Square New Year's Eve ball drop. We'll have more right after this. Well, the new year is just a few hours away here in the U.S. and the Times Square New Year's celebration getting started right now. Yesterday, organizers tested the ball drop for tonight. Last month, a new ball was revealed with over 5,200 Waterford crystals and LED lights. Just gorgeous. The ball is set to drop at exactly 11:59 p.m. for 60 seconds to ring in 2026. If you are in New York, kudos to you for braving the cold weather. The ball dropping also means many will start their New Year's resolutions, from sleeping better, being more active, or scrolling less. The annual tradition dates back centuries. The first appearance of the phrase was seen in the Boston newspaper in the 1800s. And in 2000 BC, a 12-day springtime festival was held to celebrate the upcoming farming season. From all of us here at the National News Desk, we wish you an early Happy New Year. That's going to do it for us, but we hope to see you again tonight at 10. I'm Dee Dee Gatt. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.